Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Matt Rhule in Nebraska. They're going big game hunting when it comes to building this staff going into 2026. To me, this feels like a really big deal because I go back 12 months ago to the Nebraska fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of years. Y'all know I was a little bit critical with how passive Nebraska felt last year at this point. That means from a coaching staff perspective, but at the same time, from a personnel perspective, there were some needs that I thought Nebraska needed to get right in the portal that just felt like Nebraska sat on their hands a little bit. I want to start with some of the coaching buzz that we're getting. Y'all know I'm a monster fan of Geep Wade. We've already talked about that. I think he's going to get this offensive line right. I want to talk a little bit about the defensive coordinator hire. Hand up. We haven't talked about that yet. I haven't watched a ton of San Diego State football, so I couldn't immediately break down that hire. Went back, watched some of their defense. I got some takes on the defensive coordinator hire, but I want to start here with one of the biggest fish that is currently available. That's defensive line coach Elijah Robinson. A lot of people that thought this was a done deal, Elijah Robinson going to LSU. It sounds like Nebraska is going to make a really big play for Elijah Robinson. Now, for those who are not familiar, number one, I think is a really good defensive line coach. Did some great work at Texas A&M before taking the defensive coordinator job at Syracuse. More importantly than that, man, recruits his absolute tail off. In fact, there might not be a better recruiter on the defensive line than Elijah Robinson. This is a really important position that Nebraska needs to get right. And I am not going to get up here and defend defensive coordinator John Butler. Nebraska was not where they needed to be from a personnel standpoint on the defensive line. That was my biggest frustration with Matt Rhule. Look, you lost guys like Ty Robinson, lost guys like Nash, and I mean, you brought in Gabe Moore and Jalen George. Those guys are not, difference makers at the Big Ten level. Like the way Matt Rhule wants to win at Nebraska, you need more on the defensive line. Go look at the teams that are at the top of the conference. Go look at the teams that are at the top of the sport. To me, it starts with the lines of scrimmage, and it starts with getting that right at the high school ranks. Elijah Robinson will do that for you at Nebraska. This would be a dynamite hire at a position group that Nebraska needs to get right. And here's the other thing I'll say with Elijah Robinson, gives you the opportunity to get it right immediately. This guy can build relationships like the best in the game. You talk about getting some really good portal additions into this program at this position, immediately getting it right in 2026. I think Elijah Robinson's got a chance to do that for Nebraska. This one really excites me. I think it should excite a lot of Nebraska fans. I want to move on to my thoughts on the defensive coordinator, of which I am also a pretty dang big fan of. And I also want to just have the early conversation regarding some transfer portal needs for Nebraska, because I'll say this, they're going to get aggressive in the portal. They only signed 10 guys at the high school ranks. That's got to be the smallest class of high school kids Nebraska has signed in. I don't know the exact year. It's got to be it's got to rank as one of the smallest classes ever for Nebraska, which tells me what? That they're going to use some of those roster spots that they could have used at the high school ranks, and they're going to use it in the portal. And they got some resources to work with as well. Before we get into it, just a rundown of a lot of different talking points. I do want to say thank you. This fan base been showing a lot of love to the boys for a very long time. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, kind of gave my piece on Elijah Robinson. I think just one of the best in the industry, coaching defensive line and acquiring talent on the defensive line. Two things of which Nebraska desperately needs to get right going into the 2026 year. How about Rob Aurich? And I think Rob Aurich is, I think I think that's how you say his last name. Now, I want to pull up the right graphic here. Apologies. I went back and watched San Diego State. And the thing that stood out to me the most regarding him, he felt very similar to what Miami did with Corey Heatherman. Corey Heatherman, when you go back and watch his defense at Minnesota, you can talk scheme all you want. The biggest thing that jumped out to me when I broke down Corey Heatherman's arrival to Miami was Go back and watch them at Minnesota. These guys play with their hair on fire, just swarm to the football, extremely aggressive, active against the run, getting their hands on footballs, similar vibes. Like we can get more into the scheme conversation during the offseason with to me, it's more of what he's going to bring to this Nebraska defense from a culture standpoint. You talk about playing with speed and physicality, he's going to bring it. And you look at San Diego State, and look, this ain't no powerhouse Mountain West program. They're good. They're rarely great, right? And it's not necessarily like they're known for their defense. I mean, statistically, this was one of the best defenses that we saw in the entire country out there in the Mountain West. Stopping the run, really stingy against the pass, getting after the quarterback. I'll say this, they got a backer there that's a redshirt sophomore that I would love to see playing for Nebraska in 2026 as well. I like this hire a lot. Want to get into some portal needs because I'll say this, we got to get the coaching staff right. We also have to get what this team, from a personnel standpoint, get it right too. Most notably, the names highlighted in red are the names that are right now leaving, whether that's due to the NFL draft like Emmett Johnson or graduation. Running back is a monster conversation we need to have. And that was a problem. And look, Nebraska tried to address it. They tried to get Tramar Brown from North Dakota State in the spring. He ends up going to Miami. And we probably need two backs coming in, right? And you have to try to replace the value that Emmett Johnson brought to this running back room. And look, there might not be replacing Emmett Johnson. He was one of the best backs in the country. This room needs at least two guys coming in that can play and tote the rock. One of the bigger issues with Nebraska is they did not have a lot of depth. They were forced to use Emmett Johnson a lot. Now, the good thing for Nebraska, he was a stud, so I had no problem giving him 25 to 30 touches a game. In an ideal world, you don't want your running back having that much of a workload, right? We got to get more guys that we trust to tote the rock. I feel good about the wide receiver room, feel good about the tight end room. Offensive line, you got to trust Geep Wade. That's one of the things that I really liked about the Geep Wade hires. He's done a really good job, not only doing a good job developing at Georgia Tech, did a really good job evaluating some portal additions, which is something Donovan Raiola just did not do very well. And we spent a lot of money on Elijah Pritchett, and Elijah Pritchett just was not worth the money we spent on him. I'm interested to see where Nebraska goes, specifically at tackle. I think there are some guys on the inside of the offensive line that will be ball players for Nebraska. If you want to take the jump that Nebraska needs to take, you have to be able to block up those edge rushers at Ohio State and at Penn State and at Michigan. I'm just not sure. I'm positive. I'm a Michigan fan. I watched that game, Michigan against Nebraska. Nebraska's tackles could not deal with guys like Jayshon Barham and Derek Moore. Got to get that right. And then on the defense side of the football, look, I look at the back seven, feel pretty solid about it. It's just we need a complete revamp on this defensive line. And there are some guys I like. Williams-Nwaneri is going to be a really good football player for Nebraska going forward. I think there's a bright future for Keona Davis. I think there's a really bright future for Cade Petrick, that freshman from South Dakota. I mean, like Riley Van Poppel and Jalen George and Gabe Moore. It's not saying that these guys can't take a step, but we need immediate contributors that can come in and help this football team. We'll get into this conversation more as more players enter the portal. I'll say this. Really big fan of Matt Rhule saying, hey, I did not do enough last offseason. We needed to make some changes. We needed to make some additions that we failed to make last year. We ain't going to make that same mistake. That's becoming very clear with the kind of hires that Nebraska has already made, that they're trying to make. And I think you're going to see that effort get reflected in the portal as well. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.